Down to the Wire is on the air here on Vegas Insider. Kevin Rogers with you. Week 1 of the NFL. We can close the book on it. Look ahead to week 2. I'll let you know what? I should turn probably the audio off. That'll be helpful, right? Good start to the show. You can't really do this with the echo. Big Ben. All right. So we are here now, and number one, week 1 of the NFL is now in the books. And secondly, what is very key is that we see the first new head coach lose last night. You know, the head coaches, the rookie head coaches, I'm not counting like Doug Peterson or, Josh McDaniels, guys like that who had been coaches before. I'm talking about rookie head coaches. They were 4-0 going into last night before Nathaniel Hackett lost, and he mismanaged that clock late. They go for the 64-yard field goal, and it all kind of falls over and is a terrible thing for the Broncos. And you know what's funny about the Broncos is Denver fumbles twice inside the 5. They had the opportunity at the end to go ahead. They had so many chances to win that game, and yet they end up losing in Russell Wilson's return. The Seahawks could not win a game the rest of the season, but they won their Super Bowl last night, it felt like, behind Geno Smith. So interesting to see what happens in week 2. Bruce Marshall is going to join us coming up in just a moment. He is a handicapper, Vegas Insider, if you don't know, and also he is the author of Tech Trends. All the trends you need to know for college football and NFL. We're not going to go over every single trend. No, Bruce got like a million trends, but we're going to go over some of the key games with Bruce coming up in just a few moments. First, want to give you our MLB Best Bet of the day. Last night, we hit with the Giants, the G-Men, the baseball G-Men. They held off the Braves. That was a good one. We'll stay out west tonight. The Padres and the Mariners meeting up in Seattle, and the Mariners coming off a huge series against the Braves. They won the final 2, but we're going to fade Seattle tonight and go with San Diego. And Yu Darvish, he takes the mound for the Padres. They're 3-0 his last 3 starts. Logan Gilbert's been very good for Seattle of late. He had a good season last year, up and down a bit this season, but he is coming off back-to-back scoreless efforts. And also he beat the Padres as a road dog earlier this season when the teams met in San Diego. The Mariners won both those games. The Padres should be pretty focused here to bounce back, and also Seattle off that huge win over Atlanta in which they were up big. Atlanta came back. Mariners had back-to-back, or hit 2 homers rather, in the 9th inning. Julio Rodriguez and Eugenio Suarez with the homers off Kenley Jansen on Sunday to win it. So you wonder here, a bit of a letdown, but San Diego should be up for this one with Yu Darvish. I'm going to take the Padres here to beat the Mariners as our MLB Best Bet of the night. All right, with all that being said, let's go to our man, Bruce Marshall. And Bruce, he is with us again. You can check him out on Vegas Insider. And you know what, Bruce? I'm very excited to have you as always. We have a lot of trends to go over with you, so let's begin. And we're going to start with college football Saturday. We're going to go with Cal and Notre Dame. And I know your mind is an unbelievable encyclopedia. When's the last time you remember Notre Dame having this much hype and being in this much trouble at 0-2?
Wow. Well, 0-2. I mean, even when Jerry Faust was there, Kevin, they weren't 0-2. They won their first game that year. And that's back to 1981. And if you go back to the Fiesta Bowl, Marcus Freeman has now lost his first 3 games as the head coach at Notre Dame. Nobody really blamed him for those first 2, but there's some problems there. And of course, now, Tyler Buckner, the quarterback, is out. So Pine, the backup, is going to have to be in there. They host Cal this week, the first time since 1967 that Cal has traveled back to South Bend, and it's taken them 55 years to get over Ara Parseghian brutalizing a bunch of Berkeley hippies 41-8 55 years ago. So Cal comes back this week. Freeman looks for his first win, but there are some tech trends in this game too. We might be able to talk about those in a moment. But yeah, Notre Dame in a little bit of trouble as the season begins.
Well, one thing to stay on this game, Bruce, is Justin Wilcox, the coach of Cal. He's been an unbelievable underdog since coming over to take over for the Golden Bears. And, we saw they had a tough, it's up and down for Cal. We know that it's very up and down for them. But they've had some nice covers, some tough losses, close losses. But what do you have with this Cal Notre Dame game from the tech trend standpoint?
Well, like you mentioned, Cal has been very formful, and the book on the Golden Bears as a favorite, no, but as an underdog, yes. They've covered 11 of their last 15 getting points for Justin Wilcox. This has been a very good role for him. throughout the years, and you're getting double digits here this week. So this is the sort of spot where you can go with Cal. And just fundamentally, the Bear defense, there's nothing wrong with Cal's defense. There has not been since Wilcox came in. It's more a problem with the offense. And with the new quarterback in there for Notre Dame this week, there's a little bit of a fundamental case here for Cal too. But this is a spot where you've been able to back the Golden Bears as an underdog in recent years. And that's what I'm going to do on a Saturday at South Bend.
All right, let's move on to Penn State and Auburn now, Bruce. And home and home for these two. They played at Happy Valley. And Penn State picked up the victory. Now Penn State laying 3 here. So interesting game. And we know Auburn, I don't want to say rebuilding mode for Auburn. That's not fair, but they're not the Auburn like we saw a while ago. But what do you have here with Penn State and Auburn hooking up this Saturday?
Well, the trend to note here is Auburn's not covering games lately, although the one they did in this stretch, which is now 1-5 the last 6 back to last November. So they've only covered one of their last 6. That one they did cover was against Alabama in the Iron Bowl, a game they should have won. So this one is also in Jordan Hare this week. So maybe Penn State ought to be a little bit careful about this. Did win this game last year up in Happy Valley when Sean Clifford had a very good game, 28 for 32. And that gives Penn State, I think, the advantage here. I'm still waiting to see something from TJ Finley. I'm not sure it's going to happen for Auburn. Very unproductive through the air. They've got 1 TD pass and 4 interceptions between Finley, mostly Finley, and a little bit Ashford the first couple of games this season. So quarterback edge for Penn State, a little bit of a technical edge too. As far as the Nittany Lions here, interesting to note, after that big win over the Ohio Bobcats last week, James Franklin is now 7-1 versus the line his last 8 in the regular season against non-Big Ten FBS level foes. So that counts. Auburn counts in that category this week. 28-20 last year up at Happy Valley. I could see a similar sort of score here. And Auburn, we know how much trouble Harsin is in there. You know, he loses one game. He's already on the hot seat, but you never know if he's going to get fired or not. So a little technical edge here, maybe a bigger technical edge for the Nittany Lions.
Now, Bruce, another SEC home dog, LSU. I mean, Brian Kelly, he's got work to do. We know that. And they lose that Florida State game by 1 on Labor Day weekend, a game in which LSU was down big. They came all the way back, drove down the field. We know what happened. They scored the touchdown, missed the extra point. Now they're taking on Mississippi State. And for Mike Leach, they go to Arizona last week. You know, Arizona's towards the bottom of the Pac-12, but still, that's a road win for them. Now they're laying points here against LSU. And I remember Mississippi State was, a 15-point dog against LSU a few years ago and beat them in Leach's debut. And now they're laying 2 here. So interesting change over the last few seasons.
Yeah, that was interesting 2 years ago. Remember, that was the COVID season. All the SEC teams was play each other that year. That was the opener, first game for LSU after the national title, but it wasn't the national title team. And KJ Costello, the Mississippi State quarterback, 623 pass yards, the Stanford transfer. That was an SEC record, 5 TD passes. Mississippi State won that game in Leach's debut, like you said, 44-34. Although LSU got some revenge on Leach last year in Starkville, 28-25, led that game from wire to wire. Interesting trends here. I mean, the road team has won the last 3 in this series. It figured 3 years ago when LSU had that great team, won the national title, and went into Starkville and handled the Bulldogs in 2019. But recent series trends for the road team here, and Mike Leach actually out on the SEC road. He's covered 5 straight as an SEC visitor. However, just a caution here. That game was a little misleading, the scoreline against Arizona last week. Arizona had the ball down 1 score in the fourth quarter. Disastrous interception, went back most all the way, and Mississippi State scored, and then they were able to stretch the margin. So that was not really a 22-point win, although that's what the scoreboard said at the end. And LSU, Jaden Daniels, the Arizona State quarterback, looks like he is back in groove. He got his land legs in the second half of the opener against Florida State. So even though there is a technical case here for Mississippi State, I'd be very careful about this game. And I think LSU looks like it's coming together here. And Mississippi State doesn't go into Baton Rouge often and win. It did 2 years ago, but we'll see what happens this week, although tech trends do seem to support the Bulldog argument.
Yeah, and we'll see how LSU bounces back after that FSU loss and a big SEC opener for Brian Kelly. Now, in the Pacific Northwest, Bruce, Michigan State and Washington hooking up. Should be a pretty good one. The Spartans going out to take on the Huskies, and Washington, a short favorite here at home. And obviously, Washington, new coach, so a lot of changes there. But what do you have with this game between the Spartans and the Huskies?
Yeah, this is really interesting here. And I am old enough to remember the last time Michigan State came into Seattle. It was the opening game of the 1970 season, and the Huskies had a sophomore quarterback named Sonny Sixkiller, a full-blooded Cherokee Indian, and he became the rage in the Pacific Northwest and the country, really, for a while. First varsity game, 3 touchdown passes, threw a long bomb for a tedious 4th play of the game. And Jim Owens' Washington won that game 42-16 after a very poor 69 season that almost got Owens fired. So there's a little history here, but you got to go back a ways for it. And they've played in bowl games since then as well, but not lately. Mel Tucker, Michigan State, has actually turned some things around lately, and 11-4 versus the spread since last season, though I would point out everything seemed to fall right for Michigan State last year, especially that bowl game against Pitt when the Panthers quarterbacks all got hurt. And the cautionary note here is the last 2 games they played as a true visitor. Last year, Michigan State was beaten, and rather soundly. Purdue beat Michigan State, and Ohio State routed the Spartans. So they're on the road here, and it looks like a revived bunch of Huskies under Kalen DeBoer, the new head coach. They've won and covered their first 2 games this season, 10-5 now versus the spread for DeBoer since last season at Fresno and up here in Seattle. He's got a transfer quarterback, Michael Penix from Indiana. Looks really good, the lefty. In fact, he's beaten Michigan State before 2 years ago in the COVID season, and that was a rough year for Michigan State. But still, Penix has seen the Tucker defense before, and they're at home, and DeBoer's got some pretty good marks. So there's sort of a wash technically here between these two sides. So there's not much of a technical argument to be made either way. I think it's one of the most fascinating games of the week, and I'd be a little cautious to recommend against Washington here, just because it looks like last year, throw that out. It was more a function of Jimmy Lake not being the proper head coach, and that thing just unraveled. Washington should not have been that bad. And the Pac-12 has generally fared pretty well thus far in 2022, and Washington right at the front of that, winning and covering its first 2. So tricky one up there in the Northwest. I personally lean to Washington a little bit, but technically it's kind of a wash.
Bruce, looking at the NFL now, what did you take from week 1? What was the biggest surprise in your mind in week 1?
Denver being so unprepared last night. And I wrote about this game, and I had a little bit of fun with it. It's, Denver could be a pretty nasty fishbowl if things go bad for the Broncos there. And the coaches have found that out. And sure enough, Mark Kisley in the Post today, he wrote some of the same things I wrote about the game last night. He could have kept Vic Fangio around for what Nathaniel Hackett did last night. And you have to wonder about the preseason. Some of these coaches really take it easy in the preseason and don't play their starters much, if any. Denver was like at the top of that list with Hackett. Green Bay, again, not much work for the starters in preseason or any for Aaron Rodgers. They come out flat. That's 2 years in a row for Green Bay. So my caution here is that there can be a big difference between week 1 and week 2 in the NFL. And it's exacerbated a little bit more in recent years with some of these teams not playing any of their starters at all in the preseason. And so it takes a little while to work out the bugs. So I just be a little careful about reading too much into those results from week 1. Houston was a great example last year, looked great in the opening game against the Jags, won. Then the rug got pulled out from underneath the Texans. They looked good again this last weekend against the Colts in that draw at NRG Stadium. But again, things change from week 1 to week 2. So that's something to keep in mind.
And also, Bruce, in week 1, we saw a bunch of road favorites. We don't really see that this week. A lot of home favorites, very few road favorites. So that'll change things a bit. But I want to throw a couple games out at you. Let's start with the Thursday night game, the Chiefs and the Chargers in Kansas City. And very fascinating, Bruce, on these teams. Last year, the Chargers could have been in the playoffs. They would have beat the Chiefs on that. I mean, they had 2 shots late, losing to the Chiefs, losing to the Raiders in overtime. But, the Chiefs game really stood out that Thursday night with all the calls from Brandon Staley going for it on 4th down, and then they lose in overtime. But now revenge spot for the Chargers, short dog, no Keenan Allen for LA, but Justin Herbert's performed well against Kansas City. We saw how well Mahomes played last week. So what do you have here with the Chiefs and Chargers Thursday?
Yeah, I remember that Thursday game. I was actually down in Tampa that night watching the Lightning play, and I got back to Orlando home, and I saw the end of that game. And yes, Staley made some very funky calls, but series trends here lately have shown that the Chargers have played very well at Arrowhead. They've won the last two, won and covered the last two, 3 of the last 4. Now, 2 years ago, it was the final game of the regular season, and the Chiefs took it easy. But they have played pretty well here in Kansas City lately, and they've also been a fairly good underdog, 4-1 the last 5, 4-1 the last 5 a year ago, getting points. So this has been a decent role for the Chargers, and they have played the Chiefs pretty tough here. Watching Kansas City last week, you'd never bet against them, but we know, that's just one game, and I think Arizona may have some problems right now. It's worth noting that even with that cover last week, and big win and cover down in the desert for the Chiefs, still just 13-19 versus the spread their last 32 games on the board. Now, a lot of that came back in 2020 when they started to have trouble covering games about midseason. But this is a cautionary tale, getting too carried away with what you saw in week 1. I know the Chiefs have been at a high level for several years now, but still, they may not be quite as good as they looked against Arizona. And this is a good test because technically in recent years, this has been a spot for the Chargers, and they've certainly played here at Arrowhead very well the last few years, 30-24 last year. You could make a little case for the over perhaps here, although it is up near the mid-50s, but there's a technical case for the Chargers as long as you're getting more than a field goal Thursday night.
One of the road favorites, Bruce, the Buccaneers, they go to New Orleans, and Tampa Bay, they've had the problems with the Saints since Tom Brady's gone there. 0-4 in the regular season. Only one win came in the playoffs, and obviously that was the most important one. But Brady's been shut down a lot of these games against the Saints, and New Orleans escaped Atlanta last week as a road favorite. Now they flipped to a home dog, and Jameis got hurt against the Bucs last year in that Halloween game. But what do you make here, this Tampa Bay New Orleans game with the Bucs a short favorite?
Yeah, man, they've had trouble. You're right. In the regular season, Brady hasn't beat them, although the one game that mattered, he did win down in the playoffs. So that's the most important one. They did win. This has actually gone back 7 games now, back to pre-Brady and Bruce Arians before Brady got there, that Tampa Bay has not covered in the regular season against the Saints, including that shutout loss, that 9-0 last season. Dennis Allen, he's a head coach now, but his fingerprints are still all over that defense. He may have figured out some ways to slow down Tom Brady, and it was an embarrassing win, embarrassing loss 2 years ago at home for the Bucs against the Saints. So the Saints have kind of had their number, and that's, again, Tampa Bay. Here's another indicator. Last week they looked so good against Dallas, but again, I'd be cautioning anybody who thinks that's going to happen again in week 2 here. This has been a tough matchup for them. Things changed from week 1 to week 2. The Bucs were only 3-5 of their last 8 versus the spread as a visitor last season, so they really weren't a great road team. And as we mentioned, they didn't cover the game down here against the Saints. So series history points to New Orleans here. We'll see if that endures again on Sunday, but this has certainly been the trend in this series the last few years.
Bruce, another divisional matchup. Mentioned Seattle before. They snuck by Denver. Now they go to Santa Clara, San Francisco, to face the 49ers. And you could throw the weather thing out against Chicago last week, but even up 10-0, Justin Fields had that incredible throw to get them back in the game, and the Bears kind of cruised from there. But I felt like Trey Lance didn't show a lot after San Francisco was up 10-0. George Kittle's a question mark this week after he was out last week. But what do you make of the Niners as they're back at home? You're going to have ideal weather. It's not going to be as bad as it was last week, but also Seattle in the short week off their basically Super Bowl win against Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing you got to figure this week, or at least consider. I mean, the psychological factors here. They're, sometimes I think we overplay the letdown stuff and teams being fired up and all that, but you can kind of sense it's going to be hard for Seattle to reach that sort of crescendo again on a short week coming here into Santa Clara to play the 49ers. Although last few years, this series has been sort of like the NFC West version of the Saints and Bucks. The Seahawks have done very well. Pete Carroll has sort of had Kyle Shanahan's number. They've beaten the Niners 4 straight, 5 of 6 since 2019. And even in that one was that last regular season game where the Seahawks are about 8 inches away from winning it right at the end. They've won and covered the last 3 here at Santa Clara, so they've played pretty well. But that was all with Russell Wilson. And I know Geno looked really good on Monday night, but still, there's going to be a drop-off some at quarterback this year. The Niners actually played very well down the stretch last year. They closed fast, covering 7 of their last 8, 10 of their last 12. They won and covered their last 4 here at Levi's. So my gut feel is to sort of overlook that game, not completely, but I'm not going to go totally down on Trey Lance quite yet. It was rainy. The Bears, road first game. It just sort of fell apart late for them. This is also a spot where you might want to consider the under. Seattle under again Monday night. It's now 18-8 to the under for Pete Carroll's team since back midway in 2020. So that actually might be the way I'd first look in this one, since the offense is still kind of getting its feet wet, feet on the ground in San Francisco. And Geno, despite his pretty good stats last week, especially in the first half, they didn't score in the second half, and they only scored 17 for the game. So maybe under is the way to look. That's been the Seahawks trend. I would make that the first case here. There are series trends for Seattle, but I would minimize those this week.
Bruce Marshall, always great work. You can check out his tech trends at Vegas Insider for college football and the NFL, and also check out his picks as well. He handicaps at Vegas Insider. Been doing it for a long time, and always good to have Bruce on the show. Bruce, thanks so much for the time. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.
Okay, Kevin. Thank you.
There's Bruce Marshall and the tech trends. They're phenomenal. And Bruce, a complete encyclopedia. He's got it all. He'll give you all the stories, and really happy to have him on the show. So we have a mystery guest coming up in just a second. But first, want to tell you about our friends from BetMGM. Kick off the new pro football season with the king of sportsbooks. Sign up with BetMGM using the bonus code VIBONUS, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. That's VIBONUS, all one word, no spaces, and your first wager is risk-free up to $1,000. Visit BetMGM.com for terms and conditions. Only available in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Louisiana, Michigan, Mississippi, Nevada, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, Washington, D.C., West Virginia, Wyoming, and Ontario. Must be 21 years or older to wager, 19 or older in Ontario. Offer is for new customers only. All promotions are subject to qualification and eligibility requirements. Rewards issued as non-withdrawable free bets or site credit. Free bets expire 7 days from issuance. Excludes Michigan disassociated persons. Please gamble responsibly. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP in Arizona, 1-800-522-4700 in Colorado, D.C., Kansas, Louisiana, Nevada, Wyoming, or Virginia. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help in Michigan. 1-800-GAMBLER in Indiana, Maryland, New Jersey, or West Virginia. 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Call or text the Tennessee Red Line at 800-889-9789 in Tennessee, or call 1-888-777-9696 in Mississippi. In Ontario, if you have questions or concerns about your gambling or someone close to you, please contact Connex Ontario at 1-866-531-2600 to speak to an advisor free of charge. Sports betting is void in Georgia, Hawaii, Ohio, and Utah, and other states where prohibited. Promotional offers not available in Nevada. BetMGM, they are the king of sportsbooks. All right. Let's bring on Dave Sherapan. Haven't talked to this mofo in a while.
Wow.
Give me a sec. You talk for a while I breathe. Give me a minute.
That was a mouthful right there. I mean, you might as well said every state but
Florida.
The number of states, right, but the states that don't allow it. I mean, at this point now there's more states that do, so you have to do, where you can't do it at when you do these reads. Jamie's looking pretty good in that picture too. I'm gonna have to get one of those sport coats maybe and start doing pictures like that. Yeah. What's up? What are you wearing? A sweatshirt? You're in Florida. What are you doing? What is that?
Look at that.
Whoa! Look at that.
I figured I would represent the great city of Seattle today, since let's see, the Mariners won a couple over the weekend, and the Seahawks won their Super Bowl by beating Russell Wilson last night. So, all right, we have a lot to go over in the next 15, 20 minutes with you.
Let's do it.
Number one, survivor pools. All right. Ooh. That was the last link last night, was Denver losing. But survivor pools, parlays, teasers. What do you make of all of that just dying last night?
Oh, my. That was, I mean, you were here. there were 6,100 people in the Circa. There's less than 3,000 now. Over half the people that were in that are gone. And that was a $1,000 entry. So you know how many people do Survivors. I mean, that was a big weekend, and anyone that thought they escaped the weekend and got to Monday night with Denver got to see them go for a 64-yard field goal at the end instead of trying to get closer and win the game. I don't know what they were doing. Teasers did okay. I mean, Baltimore, there's certain games that like everyone has, and yet somehow the line still moves at every book in the country. I don't understand how the Baltimore line ever came down off of 7 with the Jets, but that was the one winner. San Francisco, no good. Colts, no good. There were some minefields on Sunday, and you know, if they started off good with having the Bills on Thursday, it didn't last even Saturday or Sunday. But the NFL was tough, man. I thought the games were there was a couple good ones, you know, where it seemed like a lot of people had, and somewhat, what dare I say, exciting. There were some good endings. I don't know if like the Steeler game was exciting of an ending. It was kind of just a misfits plays and things kept happening to extend the game. But football's back, K. Roger. It's back. That's all you can say at this point.
You know, they call it, was Scott Hansen, who I'm not a big fan of, but he says the witching hour, 3:30 to 4 Eastern time. We had, I think, Dave, New Orleans, Atlanta, Philly, Detroit, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Indy, Houston, Washington, Jacksonville, all like coming down to the end. It could have flipped either way. I may be missing a game somewhere in there. And it's just insane where, like, okay, in the Westgate, I went 3-2. I had Pittsburgh.
Good.
I had Houston. I had Washington. I had Jacksonville originally. I flipped to Washington because everyone was on Jacksonville. That one went back and forth. The Pats stunk. I took them, and I took the 49ers, and they're up 10-0. But like even that Washington game was exciting. A lot of people didn't pay attention to that. What was to you? I asked Bruce this. He said Seattle. What's to you was the biggest, not upset, but the biggest shocker in your mind that you saw on Sunday?
I mean, the Bears winning the game outright. There wasn't anyone that thought that could possibly happen. So that was like one of the biggest surprises. Now, as far as like learning something or seeing something, a lot of love for Minnesota, and they really handled Green Bay. I don't know what to make of Green Bay right now. A lot of questions. There's more questions that came out of that game than answers. You know, divisional game on the road with a team that's ready to take that next step and maybe win a division like Minnesota. I think we learned less about them and opened up more questions about Green Bay. Buffalo's the best team. Thursday, Buffalo solidified the top of any power ranking that I would look at or think of. That was one that was like, wow, they look like they own it. If I had season wins over, I'd feel really good about it right now. If I had them to win the division or even win the AFC right now, I'd feel really good about it. As far as like a surprise or I mean, Atlanta hung in there. Seattle obviously was a big story, and Geno Smith. What about the Patriots? I mean, I do this show every day with Peralta. He was all over this Patriots and telling me they're going to win 9 games. Something is amiss right now. At least I think so in New England. And they get to go to Pittsburgh this week, and I get to hear about it all week after Pittsburgh somehow beats the Bengals but loses their top guys. So we've already got injury questions. I think the biggest one for me, the biggest surprise, I'd agree with Bruce, it was probably Seattle. But I'm not big on Denver, so it wasn't as big for me as it was for a lot of people. I was most impressed with Buffalo on Thursday.
Oh, Dave, I want to go back to that game for a second because the Bills, the Rams opened at 1, the Bills flipped to 1, and then they closed at 2.5. You know, and I think a lot of people are going to, the defending Super Bowl champions are home underdogs. You have to take them. There's value in them.
Yeah.
And then you watch that game, and you're like, no, Buffalo's clearly better than Los Angeles. There's a reason why that line moved the way it did.
Without a doubt. And I think the other thing is that it showed me, I mean, something might be really wrong with Stafford, right? Like their offense revolves around Cooper Kupp and him getting a touchdown like the first game out. You bet him to win a touchdown. He's minus money to score a touchdown, and he does it. And no one else is minus money in that market. I couldn't stop thinking about that. Like, when is a guy ever minus money to score a touchdown? Even the best guy, unless he's the running back, there's no wide receivers that are like that. So the game's changing a lot. I think a lot of people fell for the trap. I mean, like, we had Chris on Monday, and he talked about being first to go to 3, got an immediate bet. I mean, there was a lot of people, a lot of rhombuses, a lot of parallelograms that were holding Rams plus 2.5, money line. The ones that flashed to 3 got the 3. It don't mean nothing when they lose 31-10. It doesn't matter what number you got, but that's a whole nother discussion for another time.
Now, what about your CLV trophy, the CLV trash can? I had Denver minus. I didn't have it. But I'm saying somebody had said I had Denver -3 last night. Well, they didn't do shit last night, and they
did
fumbled twice
nothing.
inside the 5.
Man.
So what do you have? 2 underdogs that covered in losses. It was Atlanta and it was
Yep.
Detroit, and Detroit had no business even being in that game. So really, the spread didn't matter in a lot of games. At 14 of 16 games, didn't matter.
Exactly, and that's what I think. It gets lost, at least, I mean, maybe at the beginning. I think it's so important to know that, and I couldn't find anybody that wanted to touch Atlanta or even Detroit. I mean, when is it that easy where Philadelphia just goes on the road and covers? It should have been that easy. This game is hard. Like the NFL, again, we talked about this last year when we did the show every Monday too. The penalties and the way the game is played, as far as like, you see, Herbert, I tweeted it on Sunday. Herbert was going towards the goal line, and then he was like kind of fake sliding, and then he was like, oh, maybe I can make it. And then he decided to slide. Well, the defender didn't stop running at him. He flew over him. He didn't give him a headshot, but he bumped him in the head on the way by. 15-yard penalty, automatic first down on a 3rd down when they would have had to kick the field goal. And they ended up scoring. So some games went under, though. I didn't do the count, but I know at least some games went under. But there were some games that looked like dead unders that flew over. And then, like last night, a lot of people had that over. It didn't even get close. I mean, multiple trips inside the red zone and fumbles. You can't account for that. I keep saying, Kevin, if we can find somebody or do it ourselves where we can build a model that will account for turnovers, we don't have to do anything after doing that for a year or two. It'll be easy.
Tell me about the Raiders, Dave. They play the Cardinals this week, and am I missing something from the standpoint of, I know DeAndre Hopkins is out and the Cardinals a little beat up offensively, but Kingsbury's been a great dog. This number is blowing up coming up on Sunday against the Raiders, and McDaniel's still in his first season as coach there. I know Devontae Adams is out there, but am I missing something here with this line blowing up in Vegas, laying 5.5, 6 against the Cardinals?
It's 5.5 at least everywhere, and it's 6 in a couple places. I'm looking at it right now. So I think you're going to see the Vegas effect with the Raiders now, like this year. It was building last year. Not so much this year. It's built in to the number, and I think it's quicker to move because you got to get the dog money early in the week here, because the weekend is packed with Raider fans. And that was the game on sound, at the Westgate. There's a lot of people around town that want to go watch the Raider game and want to make plays on the game. So I think it's a slightly inflated number. But on the other hand, you talk about surprises. It wasn't really a surprise to me, but it might have been a surprise to some people. Arizona looked as bad as you could possibly look. Kansas City's going to make teams look bad this season. And you give Andy Reid all summer to prepare for a first-game opponent, you better be ready to score and try to play a little defense, and they didn't do either. This might be a buy on a team that's really low right now. If you wait, I don't think you'll get 7, but you'll get 6. You might even get a 6.5 on Arizona. Seems high. It seemed high last week, and then right on Friday, it hit me. I was like, yeah, I'm not touching Arizona. It's Kansas City or nothing for me. We'll wait and see, but it might be the same situation. Arizona may be in for a long road if D-Hop doesn't come back soon because that offense looked bad.
Survivor pool, Dave. You have a lot of choices this week. You have the Rams, the 49ers, the Packers, now the
Cleveland.
Bengals with Dak out, the Bills. Who in your mind is the top survivor pick this week?
Cleveland. Just pick against the Jets. This is like, how many more times do you think you'll use Cleveland, especially without Watson playing? I don't even want to worry about when he comes back and play. Get it out of the way. I think a lot of people will pick against the Jets, especially on the road. Don't want to overthink it early. Just survive in advance. Just like Jim Valvano said with NC State back in the day. I know you know what I'm talking about. If you don't, go watch that documentary. There's a lot of other ones that you would consider, but I mean, I'm not comfortable taking San Francisco. San Francisco is the biggest spread of the weekend, right? And you want to take them against Seattle? You're supposed to take San Francisco. I understand. Green Bay at home against Chicago, laying a gigantic number. No, not for me. Everybody likes to save the good teams, so I don't know if it's time to take Buffalo. Those are the three biggest spreads. I'm scanning the board right now. I just looked down real quick when you said Survivor. Who would I pick? And I got the second game in a rotation. Cleveland. That's if I was in it, I would pick Cleveland, live with the results. I'm going to keep picking against the Jets. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but I don't think it'll be this weekend.
Well, Cleveland's friends to the south of Ohio. I'm guessing the Bengals will be a big survivor pick, parlay, teaser. That line, Dallas, what weren't they laying 2.5 over the weekend before Dak got hurt, and all of a sudden now
right
the
here.
Bengals are laying
It's
7,
it's
right?
funny you said it. This is it right here, and it is exactly that.
Yep.
Dallas minus 2.5 against Cincinnati. Can you imagine if you were holding a Cincy plus 2.5 ticket right now, and you could take Dallas plus 7.5 and maybe enjoy the game? I don't even know if 7.5 is enough with Dallas. Tampa's really good, but they're not that good. But Dallas is done. Toast. One of the books, we talked about it today, yesterday, they're paying out the season wins under already on Dallas to get the money back and make a nice splash promotion-wise. They're not winning. They're not even going 500 at this point. If Dak misses 4 to 6 weeks, they'll be lucky to win a game in that period. So, Cincy, unfortunately for them, lost at home to Pittsburgh, but they're going to make it up this week. They're going to definitely beat Dallas. But are you comfortable picking a team on the road in a survivor pool? If it ain't Baltimore at the Jets like it was last week, I think Cleveland at home against the Jets this week, still the best pick for me. Rams, maybe? Rams against Atlanta?
The Falcons, I mean, after they blow that big lead, this guy Arthur Smith, I saw a press conference with him. Why is it these coaches that are on with shitty teams? Why do they always get so defensive? It's like, dude, you blew a big lead. Like we'll be back. We'll be back. No, you lost that game. You should have won. Why do you get so defensive? Like,
well,
do
because
something different.
I think though in those situations, those guys are really feeling it for their job, right? Like so, they don't need anyone else calling them out. They're bringing it up or talking about it. So I could see why. I'm not saying I agree with it, but that's probably why they get defensive, Kevin. Somebody's looking over their shoulder every second.
How surprised are you? I just want to go to college for a second. How surprised are you Scott Frost got fired that quickly? Or you're just not? You can't lose to Georgia Southern at home.
Can't lose to Georgia Southern at home. I mean, at some point, and Matt kind of clued me into this a little bit more, but like they played together. It had to be one of those discussions that, Trev went, look, man, you lost to Georgia Southern at home. They're coming with the pitchforks. I got to let you go. And I'll do it now so you get that full bonus. I'll tell we'll discuss it, but if we get you out now, you get the full $15 million. If we wait until October 1st, which they're going to fire you October 1st, you're not gonna be able to get that money. So you got to go now, pack it up. And I don't remember too many times, Kev, where a college coach gets fired in the middle of the season. It's got to be bad. Like not just bad. It's got to be bad for that to happen. lost to Georgia Southern at home. That's and I'm not totally dissing Georgia Southern, but it's Nebraska. And now they're dogs at home against Oklahoma. I think now the game is taking on a whole new dynamic where I thought, all right, Oklahoma's just going to walk in there and beat them up too, or Nebraska will try to keep it close and lose by one score, which is what Scott Frost did while he was there. The sharp guy, everybody's on Nebraska. It's the number's coming down. It might have come too high at 14, but it's 12 and a half, 12, down 11 and a half. Everything in my experience says that Nebraska is the side, but I wouldn't touch that game with Bruce Marshall's money. Like I don't want nothing to do with it. But if I had to, I think today, Tuesday, I'd play the dog.
Well, the other one, too, is you want the ultimate irony. You said you can't remember a coach getting fired that early. Who did Scott Frost lose to? Clay Helton, who got fired by USC last year.
That was what, week 4 or week 6?
No, that was week 2 after Stanford. That was after they lost as like 18-point favorites to Stanford last
year. USC's cold. I mean, didn't they do that to Lane Kiffin too? They just said, you're done. That's it. Don't come back on a plane and something like that. Those mid-season or early season firings, you're up against it. If you got fired in September, you probably never really had a shot.
Really quick, Dave, before we let you go, do you know anybody that had Georgia Southern, Marshall, App State, Washington State, any of those teams to cover?
It was funny. There was definitely people that had App State in the book. I was out and about. I think we were at the South Point by that time. It was either there or Westgate. I can't remember specifically. Oh, it might have been at Resorts World. This guy was cheering App State like he probably had a whole $20 on it, but he was cheering like he had 2 dimes on it. I mean, he was very excited, and he had the money line for sure. No, those other ones, I don't think there was too many those Georgia Southern tickets for sure. And Marshall, look, man, they won that game as much or more than Notre Dame lost it. Notre Dame is, what a lot of, I mean, that's more than question marks. That's a lot of I don't knows and what do we do now? And man, oh man, the Irish fans were not at all happy that I was out and about and saw. They were just like kind of just frowning and like shoulders slump, like, and they didn't even want to bet the later games. They were just like, I'm done. I'm just going to go get some pizza and go up in my room. I felt bad for them because they were big favorites and they never had a shot.
Penn State going to win at Auburn?
Damn it, Kevin. I don't think so.
Really?
I want them to. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe this line is 3. I thought it would come a little bit lower, and at least but they got it at 3. And I'm not impressed with Auburn at all. But you mean to tell me that Penn State was 3.5 at Purdue, and now we're 3, and it's 3, may go to 3.5 at Auburn. So you're telling me Auburn's the same as Purdue? I'm not buying it. I'm just not. The total's 47. It's a lot lower than the total was with the Purdue game. I mean, the number tells me a ton right now. And on Tuesday, I don't feel good about it at all. I hope I change that gut feeling that I have by Friday and can actually get excited to watch the game on Saturday and go, yeah, Penn State's going to win, But as of today, Kevin, I don't like this at all. I mean, we're going to ask Clifford to orchestrate another game-winning drive. This game's probably going to be close. I feel like we got away with one at Penn State against Purdue. I don't know if they can do it again. You like Penn State?
I'm staying away from that game.
So hard.
I don't want to trust Harsin either.
You got Michigan against Uconn, laying that big number. Michigan was a gigantic number against Hawaii last week and didn't cover. They're going to cover this week, Kev. The alumni.
Jim Calhoun coaching UConn?
I don't think it's Jim Calhoun. I believe isn't it Jim Mora Jr.?
Jim Mora Jr., that's right.
Right? Nobody knows. You think
that's
you know, and you never
will.
will.
Coach football at UConn, right?
Listen, everybody
needs
a job at some point.
Coach there.
Everybody needs a job at some point. You either got to get a job to get money or get a job to get out of the house. And you know exactly what I'm talking about. So, hey, UConn opening, let's go. Pack it up.
You've burned all your bridges in the NFL, so let's just go to an independent that's got
What a
unbelievable.
schedule they got too. That ain't easy. My goodness.
You know what that is? That's collecting those paychecks from those schools. Michigan, give us some money. We need to rebuild a basketball facility. Give us money.
Oh, what about the baseball tonight? Real quick. You got baseball tonight? I mean, you got Marlins, Alcantara at home against the Phillies. I can't believe the number.
I like who did I have before? Oh, I like San Diego tonight against Seattle with Darvish.
Do you? You're wearing the Seattle stuff and you're going to give San Diego out?
Yeah. I mean,
All
I'm
right.
wearing like the old. Well, no, I'm not. I forgot what team I'm going for. This is like the Alvin Davis years of the Mariners.
Jay Buhner.
Jay
Love Jay
Buhner.
Buhner. What was the DH's name? The lefty with the glasses? Ken Phelps?
Ken Phelps. That's right. Yeah.
Goodness gracious. Mark
He had a lot of
Langston
top
before the Angel years. Oh, that was a good team. I really enjoyed those Mariner teams. I think the Mariners win tonight, just for what it's worth.
I'm just fading Gilbert. Coming up back-to-back shutout performances. And Seattle got him twice in San Diego earlier this year. I just think that
did.
they think the Padres come back tonight. We'll see.
Okay. All right.
See after the Mariners have that big series against the Braves.
Manoah Day, second game in Toronto. His K's over. I've been all over it. Every single start. I believe it's 15 of 16 starts. He's had 5 Ks or more. If you can find a 4.5, that's money. But 5.5 will make you sweat maybe. But I think Manoah's good tonight. K prop over. Had to come with something. I feel bad I've been ducking you. So I'm glad I got to come on the show.
It's fine. Can we I don't want to schedule a date again for next week, but I guess we'll be tentative. We'll see.
Yeah, I gotta pick the right day. So
Okay.
if we can, let me figure this out. These baseball playoffs, I'm going to be on MLB Network this week, and they literally just text me. My phone was buzzing. This is how it operates. We need you on the show on Friday. I said, oh, okay. So we'll see. I'm trying to figure out the baseball playoffs, Kevin. I'm really beside myself with the whole thing. I don't know who's going to beat the Dodgers. I'm not sure who's going to beat the Dodgers in the NL.
I mean, think about this. You have Andrew Haney, you have Tyler Anderson. Like, those are some of your arms. Like, you have no Bauer, obviously, and Kershaw was dinged up, and Bueller's out. Like, those are
Gonsolin
your
may
guys.
come back. When he's coming back, we don't know. They don't have the top line pitching, but man, that lineup just never gives you a rest. And Mookie got hot here in the second half. All he does is hit. I don't know. If the Mets don't win that division, they have to play that 3-game series and burn Scherzer and DeGrom. I don't think they can advance. I think the only team in the NL that has a shot right now, well, it's 2. The Braves and the Cardinals, both.
I like the Cardinals.
Sleepy.
Yeah.
I think those are the only 2 possibilities in the NL. And the AL's Houston and everybody else. Houston's just better than everybody else. That's it.
As long as Verlander's healthy, they got a shot to go far.
Yeah.
We'll see. Dave Sherapan, right there, Sportsbook Consig on Twitter. Thank you, Dave.
You got it, Kevin. See you.
All right, see ya. There's Dave Sherapan. Always love talking to him, former odds maker, media personality now. And before we get out of here, I want to give you my last play. It is a strikeout prop for tonight. And Chad Kuhl of the Rockies, I'm going to go under on his strikeout prop. It's 3.5 at plus money. They're playing the White Sox. Now, for Chad Kuhl, he has gone over his strikeout total in his last 4 starts, all 3.5s. His last 5 starts away from Coors Field, he's gone over. But this one tonight in Chicago, it's heavily shaded towards the over. I'm going to go the opposite way and go under. I think he goes under. Let's get some plus money on it. I think that streak comes to an end tonight. So Chad Kuhl under strikeouts, plus 120 for the Rockies game against the White Sox in about an hour or so. All right, Mike, thanks to Dave Sherapan and Bruce Marshall for joining the show tonight, and also Spencer Ray for running the show as well. And tomorrow, don't forget, chasing that paper at 11 a.m. Eastern with Joe Osborne. Tomorrow, Joe Madden will be hosting Down to the Wire. I'll be back on Thursday, ahead of Chargers and the Chiefs. So that's when I'll be back. But Joe's going to hold it down tomorrow night. So check her out tomorrow, Down to the Wire at 6 p.m. Eastern. I am Kevin Rogers. Thanks a lot for watching. And as always, best of luck with your bets.